So today our topic is the stages of acquiring property in Nigeria, and we're going to be breaking it down and giving you a brief summary of what these stages are and the relevant things to do during these stages. So basically, we know that in Nigeria there are different stages and steps to take when you're acquiring a property. It's not as easy as just going there, saying you want this property and say that you are going to get it. No, there are a lot of stages that you have to go through, and each of these stages is important for you to go through. So today we're going to be talking about giving a brief summary of what those stages are. And before we go into that, we need to understand that acquiring property in Nigeria, there are diverse ways of acquiring property in Nigeria. It could be either through gift, through sale of land, through inheritance, or through grant from state or long possession. So today we are going to be basically talking about acquiring land through sale of land and those stages. So let's move into the stages. These step-by-step guides are divided into the pre-contract stage, which is the first stage, the contract stage, which is the second stage, the post-contract stage, then the completion stage, and the post-completion stage. The first one is pre-contract, pre-contract stage, contract stage, post-contract stage, completion stage, and post-completion stage. So let's start with the first stage, which is the pre-contract stage. This stage usually requires for the purchaser, the person who intends to buy the property, to investigate, like to go to the property and physically investigate and ask questions. Here he physically inspects the property because it helps him to know the description, if the description matches what the vendor has told him or her, because you need to know, is this man being truthful about this? Is this what the property actually looks like? And it helps you to know if there are any encumbrances or defects on the property, whether maybe at that point the property is still under lease, or maybe there are some few defects that might affect the negotiation. So this is why it is also necessary for the purchaser to physically inspect the property, and this is usually done in the first stage, which is the pre-contract stage, because it helps to put in the terms and conditions and helps with the negotiation for the contract. At this stage, you have to ask necessary questions if maybe there are any disputes over the property, or whether there are any boundaries, or maybe there are encumbrances on the property. So after all this is done, the next stage is the contract stage, and this stage involves the negotiation of terms and conditions for the sale, such as the price or the duties of the parties to the contract, that's the purchaser or the vendor. Or at this stage too, a deposit of the payment is usually made by the purchaser to the vendor, and a contract is drafted at this stage, which will include all the necessary terms and conditions that will guide the whole process of the sale of the land. And once this is executed, the vendor would hand over to the purchaser a receipt for the deposit, as well as an abstract title and epitome of title. This is a means of deducing, or a means of proving to the purchaser that you actually have a title to this property, and that you legally own the property. So that's basically what he would have to do at that stage. That's after the deposit of the payment has been made. And then once this is done, once the contract is executed, a copy of the executed contract would also be given to both the parties. At this point, the contract becomes binding on the parties, and the equitable interest passes on to the purchaser. note that at this point the vendor, the seller, still has legal interest on that land, but after the deposit has been made by the purchaser, he gets an equitable interest in the property. So with that being said, we move to the next stage, which is the post contract stage. At this stage, what the purchaser has to do is to go through a thorough investigation of the title of the property. Remember, we stated that in the contract stage, the seller has to prove he has title over the document, and he gives an abstract of title or a bit of title. Those are usually like documents that states that he has the title and gives good information of his title on the property. So once he does that in the post-contract stage, the purchaser, the person buying the property, has to investigate this. At this stage, he has to go to relevant places to carry on investigation. That's where he needs a lawyer to come in, basically. Let's note that a lawyer should be involved in all this right from the start. But at this stage, this is where your lawyer would carry on due diligence to help you inspect these documents, because you would have to he would have to help you file a search report where they are able to check for the title documents at the land registry for you to know, okay, if this land is free from any encumbrances, or if this land truly actually belongs to this person, that's the person selling it or not. So that's basically what is done in the post-contract stage. This is where you carry out your investigation and know if the vendor actually has the right to sell and if there are any restrictions on the property. So after you've done this and there are no restrictions and everything comes in clean and clear, we move on to the completion stage, and this is the conclusion of the whole process of purchasing, basically, because at this stage the purchaser makes the complete payment for the property, and the vendor executes and hands over the original document or the original title of the property to the purchaser, therefore making the purchaser the original owner, the new original owner of that property, and all title and interest is passed on to him, the purchaser. And that's where a deed of assignment is drafted, and there are title changes from vendor and purchaser to assigner and assignee in the deed of assignment. So it doesn't end there. Actually, the next stage is the post completion stage, and at this stage, this is where you have to perfect your deed of assignment. That is the document that was drafted at the completion stage. So how do you perfect that? That is by obtaining the governor's consent, stamping the document, and registering the document. So after the governor's consent has been obtained, the purchaser must proceed to pay stamp duties for the document to be stamped, and it is important for this stamping to be done within 30 days of the execution of the deed. And after that, the deed must be registered within 60 days after execution. So when all this is done, that is the final step, that is the final stage, and that seals it up, and the parties can go their separate ways. The vendor goes, the purchaser becomes the owner of the land. So these are the complete stages that you have to follow in acquiring property in Nigeria, and it's important for you to seek the help and guidance of a lawyer, because it helps you to avoid mistakes or avoid being scammed or avoid getting a property that does not have a good title or encumbrances, and it guides you and makes you avoid waste of money and time. So I hope we all understand today and we're able to learn the stages. And if you have any question or or any contribution, please don't forget to leave it in the comment section. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day, everyone.